Hello, Dia. I'm Christina and I work here in the Diocese of Kerry. As we are celebrating the season of creation, I am going to bring you on a little journey around the diocese as part of our celebration of the season of creation. We will meet people of different ages who will tell us how they are caring for creation in their schools, in a parish and at home. This special season is a time to reflect and give thanks for creation, and especially to be in nature. Pope Francis wrote all about it in his letter to us, Laudato Si, calling nature a precious book. And in that letter he wrote, nature cannot be regarded as something separate from ourselves. We are part of nature, included in it, and thus in constant interaction with it. So now, here's Niamh Ní Ghuail, who is working today in St. Francis Special School in Beaufort. Niamh just loves natural wild gardens and is a Heritage in Schools specialist and nature educator. She is going to chat to us about nature and biodiversity.
Good Christina. So we are here in St. Francis Special School in Beaufort in an amazing garden of nature. So I suppose one of the questions we're often asked is, what is biodiversity? So biodiversity is actually two words put together. So it's biological and diversity. And what it really means is just the variety of all life and how they're interconnected with each other. But I suppose the other words we use for biodiversity would be nature and nádúr and dúlra as Gaeilge. So I suppose what we are always trying to do is to show people actually what's on their doorstep already. And in this garden, there's incredible examples of all the kind of habitats. I suppose that's one word we could use. Like the homes are habitats for lots of creatures. And I suppose just to mention that St. Francis was and is the patron saint for nature and the environment for plants and animals, which is actually a really lovely connection here with the school. So we're standing out in the school and the first thing we're actually feeling is the wind. So I suppose when we're talking about biodiversity, it's literally back to really simple things of the air, the wind, the soil, which allows all the plants to grow, and the water that falls from the sky and then creates all ponds and rivers and lakes. So there's habitats, I suppose there's bigger habitats around the place, things like bogs and forests and rivers and streams. But what we can all do is have bits of biodiversity or nature in our own gardens. And in the school gardens here, we have amazing examples of shelter belts or hedgerows with native trees like birch and hawthorn and rowan and hazel, which give food and shelter to loads of birds and creatures through the year. We also have brambles growing under them, which grow in the hedges, and they're really important for a lot of the pollinators through the year as well, because they give pollen and nectar from earlier in the year, and then they give berries to birds and other animals and ourselves later in the year. Plants like nettles, they're like, we would call them Gordian and Féileachán. They're like a butterfly garden, because there's some of our butterflies, they only lay their eggs on nettles, and when the babies come out and they become caterpillars, they only feed on the nettles. So it's one of the reasons why nettles are so important. We have lovely examples here in the school garden where the caretaker's he mows the grass, I'd say maybe every 3 weeks or so, but it's gorgeous because we've lots of like white clover, red clover, self-heal, buttercup, and they were just all here in the soil. They weren't planted, they were just all here. We've lovely examples of fruit bushes, trees, apple trees with apples. We've got veg gardens where there's potatoes growing. And then we've a lovely polytunnel, which allows us to grow things like grapes as well. And in the winter, there's lots of things that can be grown in the winter in the tunnels. And I suppose the other areas that we have as habitats would be the dead hedges, and we've compost areas. So even in a small space or a big space, you can have such variety of habitats, and it's how they all work together and how they give homes to so many different creatures and plants. But the really important thing to remember is we are all part of nature. So when you're spending time out in this garden, it's just absolutely full of the senses, and also full of, it's lovely and peaceful. Another really simple thing that your school can do is to go out on siúlóid stúlar, like nature walks, and they can be once a day, once a week, or just to change, and you visit the same places, the same trees, and watch how they change through the season. You're looking up at the spare to see the scammell, all the clouds, and looking all around you and looking down. So you kind of put on your plant eyes or your nature eyes when you go on your siúlóid stúlar. And the other really lovely thing to do is maybe to bring back some little bits from your siúlóid and start a little bordúlar, like a nature table. And that can also be part of the sacred space. It could be the little flowers or things you collect on the way, like little feathers and stones. So they're just really simple things, because there's so much, there's more nature around us than we realise sometimes. But it's to go out with your plant eyes on and to start noticing it.
Thanks, Niamh. Now, let's go back to Beaufort and hear from Bernadette O'Neill, who is an art teacher in St. Francis Special School.
So I'm the art teacher at the school here, and I'm so grateful to have the garden as a source of inspiration for our art classes. The students love coming out here, and we could sit down on the bench in the sunshine or go into the tunnel when it's raining. We've used all the beautiful plants, the colours, the willow as inspiration for chalk drawings or paintings, for building things. And then some of the other groups would enjoy sitting inside the tunnel, maybe listening to the rain. It turns into a sensory garden, listening to the rain falling on the roof of the tunnel, and they'd be watering and looking at the beautiful colours, putting their hands into the earth. Not all of them like putting their hands into the earth, but some of them would practically bury themselves in it. They love it so much. So it just depends on the student. Definitely it's a big contrast from being in school to come out into the gardens and just to enjoy the peace and the weather and enjoy God's creation.
Thank you, Bernadette. Our second school we're going to visit is St. Oliver's National School in Killarney. Let's meet the Green Kingdom team and see what they've been getting up to.
We are the Green Kingdom team!
We are from St. Oliver's National School, Killarney, or should we say,
the Kingdom!
We know that we all need to make positive changes in our lives in order for climate to benefit. We want to empower our families and all those around us here as a community in Killarney to make good choices.
We learned all about the negative activities around the world that are increasing greenhouse emissions and how they are impacting our climate. We saw how there has been a huge increase in wildfires and flooding all around the world.
We invited Janet from Chokra to talk to us here in school during Lent. We saw how unfair climate change is on the more vulnerable families around the world in countries like Guatemala. We looked at small changes that we could make and how we could encourage others to make the same changes on a local level.
This year for Green School Water Challenge, we learned all about how to save water and where our wastewater goes to.
We can save water by turning off taps when we're not using them, by making sure our dishwashers and washing machines are full before we turn them on, and by fixing leaks.
We can save water by not overflushing our toilet and taking showers instead of baths.
We can collect rainwater and reuse it for gardening and for washing our cars.
Water can be polluted with litter, slurry runoff from farms and dirty water and other sources.
We learned that wastewater from our schools and houses is treated in Killarney's treatment plant, and the clean water goes into Lough Lane.
H2O, H2O, don't pollute, you should know. H2O, H2O, fix the leaks and stop the flow. H2O, H2O, don't pollute, you should know. H2O, H2O, fix the leaks and stop the flow.
We are
lucky enough in St. Oliver's School to receive a homemade rainwater planter from the Killarney Men's Shed.
We planted different plants that thrive from extra wet soil conditions. We made sure the rainwater goes to good use. Water is a source of life after all.
As part of our Grow It Yourself climate challenge, we wanted to plant vegetables and plants that would flourish in our school environment.
And we have onions, lettuce and spinach, and we made signs for the garden.
We planted things such as pumpkins and wildflowers like marigolds. All of these are great pollinators and help support our bees and the very important job that they do.
Look and see all our vegetables and plants. We have lettuce, sweet corn and strawberries.
We all need to act now and inspire others in our community to become climate ambassadors.
We need to think about what we can do on a local level to encourage biodiversity and sustainability in our school and homes.
What can we as young people do for our world? Let's start now and let's make changes now to make sure we continue to enjoy the wonders of our world.
Let's look after our beautiful world. Let's protect our climate and make sure future generations enjoy the beauty and magic of our world.
Well done to the Green Kingdom team. Our third school is in Tralee, in Presentation Primary School, where we meet Kathy Eastman. Kathy is an ecologist and facilitates school gardening. Today she is focusing on well-being gardening.
I run the school gardening programme and the habitat study project in the Pres Primary here, and I work with all the different classes to study habitats and look at biodiversity. I bring the classes out into the school garden here and we work on growing different vegetables so that they all get some sense of where vegetables come from as they go through the school. And then the habitat study project is focused on all the habitats around Tralee. So the idea is that from junior infants, they go to the town park. Senior infants, they go out to Phoenix Beach. First class, they go up to the bog in Glanaginty. Second class, they go to the wetlands. Third class, they go out to a farm. So they look at the meadows in the farm and the different biodiversity that lives in the meadows. And then fourth class, they go to Ballyseedy Woods. Fifth class, it's out to a river, to either Scotia's Glen or Tonavan. And then sixth class, they go up Knockmichael Mountain, which is just outside the town, and they can see all of the other habitats that they visited over the whole of their school life here, I suppose. The idea being that they get to experience all of these different habitats and see all of the different wildlife that lives in and around Tralee. Now there's a lot of it in their school grounds. Behind me there's sparrows nesting in the roof. There's a peregrine falcon that lives up on the tower that we go and pick up the dead bones of things that it's dropped every few weeks. And study what kind of things the peregrine falcon's been eating, which is really interesting. And then we grow food, so we grow potatoes, we grow cabbages and broccoli and lots of different herbs then as well, so there's lots of different sensory parts of the garden. And then we have a little wildlife pond as well, and a little tiny example of each of the habitats. So there's a small woodland, there's a little native hedgerow, there's a bit of meadow, there's a small bit of beach planting, things like sea spinach, and then there's a bit of kind of bog garden that we're trying to cultivate as well. I find that the kids, it's really interesting how they come out of themselves when they are learning outdoors, and one of the things I do in lots of different schools is to support teachers to bring their classes and learn outside. So they're learning curriculum subjects, they're learning what they would be learning inside, but they're coming outdoors to learn it. And that's one of the core features of the Habitat Study Project, is that we are teaching curriculum subjects. We're teaching science and maths and all the different bits of the curriculum, but we're just teaching outside. So I do try to support teachers to teach outside as much as possible. I think children learn differently outside. Some learn better in a hands-on way. They learn when it's applied maths, when they're measuring a raised bed or measuring the number of potatoes they need to plant. And children will learn differently. Mostly they just absolutely love being outside in the garden and poking around at the insects in the soil and the insects in the leaves and finding creatures and picking flowers and smelling herbs and eating things from the ground. And it's a new experience for some of them, so it's great.
Thank you, Kathy. Now, most parishes have grounds, but some have biodiversity gardens too. And now all parishes in Ireland have been called to set aside 30% of church grounds for biodiversity by 2030. Here's one parish that has set up a Laudato Si garden. It's in Killorglin, and here to talk to us is Sinead Geary.
Thank you, Christina. Our Laudato Si garden here is our response to Pope Francis's call to action for an ecological conversion. Over the past 5 years, we've been working to transform this space from a monoculture denuded of life to a range of local habitats now teeming with native plants and wildlife. We have a meadow, native hedgerows, a compost heap, a wildlife pond, vegetable plots, a traditional orchard and a mini woodland. And now here's Declan to talk about the meadow.
Right in the middle of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus teaches his followers to consider the birds of the air and the flowers of the field. Here, in our parish Laudato Si garden, we attempt to do just that. In our times, listening to the cry of creation and seeking guidance from St. Francis of Assisi, and more recently from the late Pope Francis, care for the earth is becoming an increasingly vital part of our faith. In our parish Laudato Si garden, we seek to give life to our Creator's words. In our common home, we seek life to the full for all. Take our knapweed. Soon it will be festooned in purple blossom, and due to its abundant nectar and pollen, and seeking local and native flowers in our parish meadow, this little plant will nourish our butterflies and bumblebees, to say nothing of our finches, who will feast on its seeds in the late autumn. Whole flocks of them together, fattening up to face the many challenges of winter. Our prayer here is that we will urgently care for our earth and thereby care for each other. I'll pass you now to my colleague Tom.
One of the verses in St. Francis of Assisi's song, The Canticle of Creature, is "All praise be yours, my Lord, through Sister Water, so useful, lowly, precious and pure." And this year in our Laudato Si garden is our embrace of Sister Water, our wildlife pond. And as St. Francis recognised even 800 years ago, when he wrote those words, water is truly precious, and a wildlife pond is a fantastic source of biodiversity. Now we are very fortunate here in Killorglin Parish to have a large space to work with, but a large space is not necessary to have a pond. In small spaces you could make a container pond with an old Belfast sink or something similar. When we made our pond, we added native pond lilies, marsh marigolds and pondweed, all of which will help to maintain the biology of the pond naturally. This pond has only been here a year and a half, but already it's teeming with life, from frog spawn to insects such as water boatmen, pond skaters and damselflies, and a variety of garden birds come to the pond to drink or bathe. It really is a balm for the soul just to spend time here quietly observing all the activity. So now I will hand you over to my colleague Paul.
Here we have two wonderful native hedgerows planted just 5 years ago. We're delighted with our mainly hawthorn hedge with a complementary mix of other native species that make it a real haven for biodiversity. These include blackthorn, holly, willow, elder, spindle and mountain ash. This unique resource offers food, shelter and breeding sites for many species and acts as a wildlife corridor. The hazel hedge is another valuable resource, supporting over 70 insect species and 160 lichen species. It was a food and building materials source for our ancestors.
On our journey around the diocese to view what is being done to protect our biodiversity, we have looked at what a parish can do, what a school can do, and now we are on our journey to Drumtariff in the County Cork part of our diocese to see what an individual can do. I would like to introduce Evelyn O'Sullivan, a long-time member of the Diocesan Committee of JPIC, Justice, Peace and Integrity of Creation.
Thanks, Christina. Hello everybody and welcome to our garden. I'm a member of the JPIC in the Diocese of Kerry, which is the Justice, Peace and Integrity of Creation group. 35 years ago we moved into this home and garden. The garden was only a green field at the time. I remember the first thing I did was make compost, badly initially, but it improved over the years and I stuck with it. When I started growing veg, I didn't use any pesticides. And pesticides include herbicides, fungicides and insecticides. My mother didn't use them and I'm grateful for that knowledge that was passed on to me. There are 4 key elements for a biodiversity garden. There are food, shelter, water and biodiversity friendly management. We'll take food. There are 5 gold stars to grow. Number 1 is dandelion, 2 is willow, 3 bramble, or as it is commonly known as briar, 4 is clover and 5 is ivy. In shelter, grow native hedgerows, make log piles, grow native trees, especially oak, which supports over 2,000 species. Water, a small bird bath or any type of container would be fantastic, but a pond would be ideal. Biodiversity friendly management, make your own compost. A compost heap offers an important site where species can live and breathe. When you compost it, it is returned to the soil. Harvest water. This can be done quite cheaply and efficiently. Make your own leaf mould. And do not use slug pellets. These can have deadly effects on birds and hedgehogs who prey on the slugs and snails. If parts of the lawn are left to grow to different lengths, you'll have more bees, more plants and more biodiversity. I'd recommend not using weed control membrane. We put some down years ago and recently took it back up. The birds have created a dust bath for themselves in one of those areas, which was great to see. Eamon and Margaret are our neighbours and they are also gardeners. Even though we have very different gardens, the support we give each other is invaluable. Biodiversity gardening no doubt has its challenges. However, the benefits far outweigh them.
Thanks, Evelyn. And now some words about Laudato Si', that letter written to us from Pope Francis. Here's Sylvia, who is a member of our Diocese of Kerry JPIC.
I wonder, do you have a letterbox like I do? I check mine every single day. But you know, about 10 years ago, I checked and I found this huge big envelope, and inside it was Laudato Si'. It was a letter to me from Pope Francis. But of course, it wasn't just to me, it was to everybody of goodwill about caring for our common home. Because he has a particular view about caring for our common home, and I have it written down here. Because he says, God has written a precious book, whose letters are the multitude of creative things present in the universe. And when he wrote those words, they weren't actually his words at all. He was quoting from Pope John Paul II. But just when I think in this beautiful garden that everything here is a letter written by God. But of course, this letter is not just all about nice things, it's also about a caution. It's all about life in our common home. And Pope Francis reminded us of two things, that there are two cries we have to listen to. One is the cry of the poor, and in some ways maybe we have been good at that, but the other is the cry of the earth. And he says the earth is like our mother, Mother Earth. But the earth itself is like a sister who's now crying out to us because of the harm that we've inflicted on her. We've done it in so many different ways. This beautiful creation that has been created by God, and what have we done with it? And maybe if we saw it as a beautiful book whose letters were written by God, we wouldn't be doing those things. Just think of some of the damage that we've done. We've burned down forests. We've created climate change, where we see children in countries like Malawi, Guatemala, who can't plant or can't plan their season of growing because there's either drought or famine. We see Sudan and the drought there. We see the wars in all of the places where there are wars now, Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, where in the ground there are landmines and all the remnants of war. And yet God has created all of this, and he's asking us to see himself in the beauty of our created home, in the face of a poor person, in a leaf, in a dewdrop, in a drop of water, in a plant. And if we do that, we somehow come to a new place, a new way of seeing. Because if we see earth in that way, we actually are converted. We have what is called, or Pope Francis calls it, eco-conversion. And that's what he's calling us to. Because he says every piece of soil, every plant, every sunrise is like a caress of God. We get glimpses of God. And so that urges us on to protect it. And so because of that, many parishes are now doing very exciting things in their gardens. Because the Irish bishops about 2 years ago called all parishes around Ireland to set aside 30% of their grounds as part of the response to Laudato Si, this letter from the Pope. And of course that letter is officially called an encyclical, a big word, usually addressed to bishops and priests, but in this case to all people of goodwill. So that we would set aside in our parish grounds, church grounds in particular, places where pollinators could thrive, where we would see that the earth is healed and protected, where bees that are so threatened would be protected. Because in the letter Laudato Si, Pope Francis says, because we feel so united to all of creation, because we're part of it, when we see it damaged, we feel it like a pain inside of ourselves. It's like the desertification of the earth is like a physical ailment that we feel. So that's our call. Why? Now, Pope Francis, of course, loved St. Francis. And St. Francis wrote a beautiful hymn or a letter. And I want to just read one little piece from it. But I must put on the glasses. It's sometimes called the canticle or the hymn. Blessed are you, Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who is the day and through whom you give us light. And he is beautiful and radiant and with great splendour, and bears a likeness of you. Praised be you, my Lord, through sister moon and the stars. And he goes on to talk about brother wind, sister water, brother fire. So Pope Francis was inspired by St. Francis. And St. Francis, of course, is also the patron of ecology and of peace. And this year, in the season of creation, we're celebrating all these gardens, these little oases of peace, because the theme for this year is peace with creation. So any place that bears the name of Francis, and maybe all our little gardens will now be gardens of peace or Laudato Si gardens. Are you up for it? I hope you are, and I hope your parish is up for it too. No matter how small the step, go and be brave, and there's help available. Praised be Laudato Si.
Thanks, Sylvia. JPIC now have a parish network to support parishes wanting to start on their way to setting aside the 30%. Your parish might be interested to get connected, and if so, contact Bernie McCaffrey at the Pastoral Centre here in Killarney. So now we're at the final stop on our journey around the diocese. Here's Bishop Ray Brown, who will say a few final words.
Thanks, Christina. I've had a good view of the documentary so far, and congratulations to all involved. It's a wonderful sense of creation, covering the fields, the animals, what grows, insects, birds, beautiful. And congratulations to all involved, and thanks for all the work put into it. And it's ideal for our season of creation. Just thinking of what you recorded in St. Francis Special School in Beaufort, or there in the primary school in Tralee, the Presentation Primary. And then, of course, the beautiful work around the church and house, the parish house there in Killorglin. So it's wonderful to see it all, and congratulations to and thanks to JPIC. JPIC, the body of justice and peace and integrity of creation. It's vital that we have that committee in our diocese. For my contribution, just to make 3 points, and the first is about 30-30. You may have heard it, and it's simply that as a church throughout the Diocese of Ireland, the Parish of Ireland, we have asked that we all seek that by 2030, 30% of the land around our churches will respect biodiversity and the environment. That's the challenge we've set ourselves. So I want to encourage all our parishes to get involved in that. It's a lovely idea. Schools can help, others can help, community, but let's do it. So the first part of that challenge would be to ensure that at least one parish in each of our pastoral areas has started. And then we can build up to ultimately all our parishes, a short 5 years, 2030. Second point I want to make, and it's a very simple point, and it's a very telling point, you know. All parents, all families, education-wise, preparing for career, they want to give all the help to their children. They want their children to have every opportunity. And just think of that in terms of the environment. If we don't respect biodiversity, if we don't respect the environment, if we don't respond to the challenge of climate change, what might we be handing on to them? And remember, it hasn't hit Ireland badly yet, but it could. It could affect our farming, it could affect sea levels. So just that thing that, in terms of all this, in terms of season of creation, in terms of what we do, what we need to do, let's do it because we feel a great responsibility, an important responsibility to hand on planet Earth in good condition to the next generation, our own children. In 3 or 4 months, it's easy to forget Pope Francis. But remember, our great impetus as a church came from his document, Praise be the creator of our world. And Pope Francis also, as I say, encouraged the season of creation, the 1st of September, a natural day of creation in the Orthodox Church, and running up to the 4th of October, the Feast of St. Francis, whom we linked the environment to in the West. And Pope Francis's beautiful phrase was, care for our common home. Almost every family looks after the house, the home, where it is, the outside, the land around it. And Pope Francis says the whole world, planet Earth, is just one great big home for the human family. Pope Francis produced a document, Sisters and Brothers All. So Pope Francis says, let's work together to do what needs to be done for our planet. Let's work with people. And the second point, which is a vital point, saying that if it's a home, what good is a perfect house, well furnished, if the family aren't happy, if there's not harmony, if there's trouble? And Pope Francis says it's the same. We cannot look after planet Earth without looking after all its people. We have to be brothers and sisters all. So just think of that phrase, care for our common home. That's my final point, that we care for our common home, planet Earth, the whole planet, and all its peoples. So just in that sense, to sum up, thanks. It's a wonderful documentary. Let's use it. Let's encourage all ages to see it. Let's encourage our grandparents. Let's use it in the schools. Let's use it at home. And let's all work together, parish, schools, community organisations. Let's work together locally to care for our environment as we need to, as God asks us to. Thank you, and thanks again to those involved in putting together this wonderful documentary.
Thank you so much, Bishop Ray. I hope you all enjoyed our journey around the diocese and that it gave you some glimpses into how people of all ages are caring for our common home. We know that lots more is happening, and that's exciting. So let's celebrate. The theme for the season of creation this year is no surprise. It is peace. Peace with creation. And in this Jubilee year of hope, let us act, pray, change, and help to bring peace to our common home.